All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this session hosted by CSA and Okta. I'm Karl Henrik, or KH, and I lead product marketing for security here at Okta. And I'm really excited to dig into this topic with all of you because we're not just talking about the future of security here. We're talking about what's happening right now. And AI has already rewritten the rules. If identity isn't central to your strategy today, then your defenses are already playing catch up. So I want to zoom out for a moment before we get into the core of this and consider the broader sweep of innovation that has marked our society. Think back to the dawn of steam power, the impact of electricity, the force of computing, and the world of the internet. Each of these periods brought profound change. They reshaped our economies, our societies, and what a typical day in our lives looks like. But what's remarkable, and maybe a little bit unsettling about all this, is the accelerating pace of this transformation in just the last couple of decades. And as you can see from this slide, we've had decades, sometimes generations, to adapt to major technological shifts. That meant that we had time to understand the implications, to build defenses, and to adjust our thinking. But AI collapses that timeline. What once unfolded over a century now demands readiness in only a decade, if not faster. And we simply don't have the luxury of time to slowly understand the impact and inherent risks of this change. So this radical compression of what we call the adaptation window means that we have to fundamentally rethink how we approach security in this AI-driven reality. And building on that rapid acceleration, I want you to consider what the current landscape looks like. The narrative here isn't just about the arrival of AI, but rather its pervasive presence, right? It's no longer this futuristic concept confined to research labs. AI is here, it's now, and it's deeply embedded in the fabric of every industry, reshaping workflows and redefining business models as we speak. And just look at the indicators, right? Investment in AI is surging, with nearly 4 in every 5 organizations expected to increase their AI spend in the next fiscal year. This clearly reflects the current momentum of AI and the recognized value that it is already delivering. And these investments are yielding real, tangible results. We have seen significant productivity gains across various fields, from the promise of personalized medicine for individual tailored treatments, to autonomous finance to help optimize an investment strategy, to the development of next-generation cybersecurity tools. So it's not just a niche technology, it is a foundational element of global competition and a critical differentiator for organizations that are striving for more efficient and more innovative workflows. So in this boom, on the one hand, you have tools like generative AI, you have intelligent co-pilots that are augmenting human capabilities, and you have autonomous agents that operate independently. And all of these are moving beyond buzzwords and becoming tangible drivers of productivity across every sector. But as we know, every boom inevitably casts a shadow. So I want to cast a light on that shadow, which is the erosion of trust rooted in the concept of identity. As you may or may not know, identity has long been a prime target for malicious actors. It is consistently the #1 attack vector. But the rise of AI is exacerbating this problem to an unprecedented degree. The ability to convincingly impersonate individuals through deepfakes, the creation of entirely synthetic identities, means that human identity itself is under siege like never before. And I want you to consider the alarming trends that we're seeing. Across Europe, we have witnessed a 150% increase in identity fraud fueled by sophisticated deepfakes, and a staggering 80% of all new account fraud can be attributed to synthetic identity fraud, or identities that are entirely fabricated. And this highlights the impact that AI is having on our ability to trust the authenticity of digital interactions, especially those that involve humans. But the challenge extends far beyond just human identity. We're also seeing an explosion in non-human identities. These are things like AI agents, bots, tokens, APIs, service accounts, and other digital entities. And these non-human identities are proliferating across our systems at an astonishing rate, often with limited or no robust governance. Organizations anticipate a massive shift here, with 82% of them planning to integrate AI agents within the next 3 years, and this is contributing to an already significant 50-to-1 ratio of non-human to human identities within those same organizations. So, on the one hand, we have human identity under attack from sophisticated AI-driven impersonation, and on the other, we have an unmanaged proliferation of non-human identities operating within our critical infrastructure. And the result is pretty clear, that trust in the digital realm is fracturing. We're entering an era where the fundamental question is not just who, but also what can we truly trust? And what you're seeing here are real attacks ripped from recent headlines that show this trend and that show how AI is reshaping the threat landscape. If we start with the RUP incident, that's a headline that grabbed global attention. Attackers used AI-generated deepfake technology to impersonate senior executives at this UK-based engineering firm. During a live video call with an employee, deepfakes of trusted leaders instructed that employee to initiate not just one, but 15 separate transactions, totaling almost £20 million. And it's not an isolated incident. In another case, hackers targeted the CEO of the ad firm WPP, and they used a publicly available image, they created a fake WhatsApp account, they set up a Microsoft Teams meeting appearing to be from the CEO and another executive. They used voice cloning, video footage to mimic both of them. And although that was unsuccessful in defrauding the company, just think for a minute about the implications of these two examples. The attackers didn't need to breach sophisticated network defenses. They bypassed them entirely by hacking trust itself, using AI to impersonate authority and manipulate human action. And it's not just executives that are at risk. We're all vulnerable. If you consider the case of a woman who was defrauded of £700,000 for someone posing as Brad Pitt, that's a perfect example, right? This is not just a catfishing scheme. This was a sophisticated AI-fueled deepfake relationship. The perpetrator used AI to generate convincing videos, to craft personalized messages, and build an entirely fabricated identity. So this is synthetic fraud operating at an unprecedented scale, exploiting not just financial vulnerabilities, but human emotion and trust. And we can't forget the Snowflake security incident, which, while not a direct AI impersonation, had a scale and breadth of the attack that highlighted the critical role of non-human identities and their often overlooked access privileges. Many of the subsequent malicious activity that occurred likely used compromised service accounts, they likely used API keys, and other NHIs that had overly permissive access to sensitive data. And once compromised, these non-human identities allowed attackers to move laterally and exfiltrate massive volumes of data without detection. That's not a bug. It's the byproduct of an identity strategy that's focused only on humans. It's the one that we have. So what's alarmingly clear from all of these recent events is that we have a new pattern emerging in the threat landscape. These attackers, they don't care about your traditional perimeter defenses. They go straight for the Achilles heel, which is identity. And in an era where AI can convincingly mimic humans and where non-human identities are proliferating exponentially, if you can't definitively verify who or what is making a request, you've already lost control. This is the new attack surface. And so, impact through headlines aside, I want to step back and take a look at the bigger picture. It is important to understand here that AI is fundamentally redrawing the entire battlefield of cybersecurity. On the one hand, it's turbocharging traditional attacks. Think of spear phishing campaigns crafted with precision and scale, or malware that learns and evolves in real time, slipping past static defenses like they're standing still. But the disruption here goes far beyond simply making old attacks better. It's birthing an entirely new category of threats, and the real shift, the game changer, is that AI isn't just helping the attackers, it is becoming the attacker. We're seeing the rise of intelligent bots, autonomous AI agents, and interconnected synthetic APIs, all of which are operating independently across cloud, edge, and hybrid environments. So this is a qualitative shift toward a dynamic, machine speed landscape, and one that traditional security architectures were not designed to understand, let alone to defend. And within that shift, agentic AI introduces a uniquely dangerous identity challenge. These are autonomous agents, which by their very nature are not waiting for human commands. They are acting alone. They're initiating actions like calling APIs, transacting data, interacting with other machines using long-lived credentials. And if the identity of such an agent is compromised, the potential for rapid, widespread, or automated malicious activity is pretty significant. So that risk came into sharper focus in a conversation that we recently had with an investigative journalist who's interviewed nation-state threat actors firsthand. This journalist shared that while these advanced actors are indeed experimenting with AI, they haven't yet deployed it at full scale. For now, they're using AI to generate modular, reusable blocks of code, meaning that future attackers may not need to be developers at all if they want to launch sophisticated campaigns. And that insight is pretty critical because the good news, if we can call it that, is that one, we're still in the early innings, and two, the adversaries are testing, they're learning, which gives us an opportunity to get ahead. But the bad news is just as clear, which is they haven't even fully unleashed AI's potential. And number two, when they do, the speed, the scale, the sophistication of attacks is going to leap forward and leap forward fast. And that brings us here to a critical inflection point, which is that this fundamental rewriting of the attack surface exposes a core vulnerability, the inadequacy of these traditional identity security models designed for a pre-AI world. Now, there are 5 reasons why this old playbook just doesn't work any longer. The first is blurred boundaries. So for years, the traditional network perimeter has been dissolving. AI introduces a new level of complexity. These agents, these synthetic APIs, and machine identities, they all exist as code, interacting across thousands of systems and operating far beyond the reach of traditional endpoints. They don't log in, they don't click, they don't behave like humans, and that makes them largely invisible to security tools that were built for user behavior and for device control. So what we're facing now is not just a boundaryless environment, it is an autonomous, dynamic, self-operating ecosystem that lives outside the scope of human-centric defenses. The second reason the old playbook really doesn't work is that it's simply unable to keep up. Our legacy security models were designed to react. They were designed to respond after something goes wrong. But AI doesn't wait. It acts, it adapts, it evolves in real time. And things like signature-based detection, rule-driven policies, manual investigations, these can't keep up with AI-powered threats that move faster than human reflexes and change faster than our playbooks can update. So this is a fundamental mismatch. You've got slow, reactive defenses in a world of real-time autonomous attacks. Third up is security overload. Traditional security tools are built to understand human behavior, human error, human misuse, human intent. And AI breaks that model. It makes probabilistic decisions. It operates across thousands of systems simultaneously and sees patterns that we can't. And it breaks our assumptions about what normal looks like. The result is this crisis where the truly dangerous activity hides beneath volumes of machine-generated noise. And this cognitive overload is paralyzing already stretched teams and leaving the door open for silent, automated compromise. The fourth reason is the machine identity blind spot. So we've spent years maturing identity programs for humans, but machine identity, that's the Wild West. AI agents today often operate with persistent credentials, privileged access, little oversight. There is no consistent enforcement of least privilege, no standard rotation, and in many cases, no clear inventory of who or what is even accessing critical systems. This is a gaping blind spot. And the last reason these models break is because data governance is built for yesterday's scale. AI's lifeblood is data, massive, dynamic, high-velocity streams of data. But our legacy frameworks were never designed for these high-velocity pipelines. They were never designed for continuous model training or even the real-time ingestion and generation of sensitive content. And worse, we're facing a wave of AI-specific threats. If you add to that the opacity of AI decision-making, we're dealing with a level of governance that complexity that our current frameworks just can't handle. So here's the rub. You have traditional security models that are not failing because they were poorly designed. They're failing because the world they were designed to protect no longer exists. The perimeter is gone, the actors are autonomous, the logic is alien, and the scale is exponential. And the identity layer, which is the very foundation of trust, is under pressure like never before. And if we stick to the old models, we open ourselves up to elevated security, legal, and reputational risks. Our attack surfaces will continue to expand, blind, ungoverned, and exposed. Threat detection will erode, making breaches inevitable and undetectable. Data poisoning, model manipulation, and compromised integrity will undermine everything we build with AI, and worse off, we will fall behind regulatory requirements, which risks massive fines and reputational collapse. So, to be very clear, doing nothing isn't staying still, it is sliding backwards. So if we want to move beyond how AI is breaking our traditional models, I want to talk about how we build what comes next. And it starts with shifting the foundation itself from static to dynamic, reactive to proactive, or human-centric to identity-first. In this world, identity-first trust becomes the new perimeter. It's not about where something connects from, but who or what it is, and whether it can still be trusted in this moment. Security is embedded, not bolted on. AI innovation needs to be secure by design from day zero and not after it's already in production. AI becomes an enabler, not just a threat. We use it to gain continuous visibility to spot what humans can't and to automate response at machine speed. We invest in people, not just platforms. We equip teams with fluency in AI architecture, model risks, prompt injection, and governance frameworks so that they can operate securely and at speed. And we establish transparent, accountable governance because governance is not just a compliance checkbox. It's how we operationalize trust. That means clearly defined ownership. It means documented decision-making, risk classification, and auditability for AI systems. It's how we make it explainable, controllable, and accountable even when the logic is non-human. So this is a security foundation that adapts. It learns and it scales as fast as AI itself. And each of these pillars forms the core of a model built for speed, scale, and autonomy. Because when everything else is changing, the users, the systems, the decisions, the actions, the only thing left to anchor security is identity. This is the thread that connects everything. And there's a simple reason for this, because it's no longer about protecting networks, it's about governing intent. In an AI world, perimeters are gone. autonomous agents. They act, they decide, they interact, often beyond human visibility or comprehension. And what remains constant, what we can see, what we can govern, what we can trust, is identity. Every access, every action, every decision becomes an identity event. And only identity can govern intent at the speed and scale of AI. It is identity-first security architectures that can offer the agility and intelligence that this reality demands. They evaluate risk continuously, they enforce granular policies dynamically, and they enable legitimate action, all without slowing down innovation. This is the foundation of trust in an AI-driven economy. And that's because without provable, auditable identities for both humans and non-human identities alike, the concept of trusted AI becomes an oxymoron. If you take an example of an AI-powered trading agent, imagine it's autonomously executing high-value financial transactions. Without a robust, auditable identity tied to that agent, detailing its authorized actions, its risk profile, and a complete audit trail, how can we trust that its decisions are sound and compliant? We can't. If a malicious actor compromises that agent's identity, they could execute unauthorized trades, which would trigger financial losses and systemic instability. So let's be clear, without trusted identity, there is no trusted AI. And that's why identity is the control plane, not just another part of the stack. So how do we operationalize everything I've just walked through? This is where the identity security fabric comes in. Think of it not as a single tool, but a strategy. It is a control plane that weaves identity across every layer of your stack. Let me break it down. On the one hand, you have core identity and access management. This ensures that every action, human or AI, is verified in real time. You have governance, number 2, which enforces least privilege dynamically to make sure that AI can only do what it's supposed to and nothing more. You have privilege access management to cover the riskiest actions, right? Those crown jewel admin privileges, so that if they're misused, you know immediately. You've got threat protection, which turns identity signal into early detection. If behavior is off, the system would flag it before any damage is done. And finally, you have workforce identity posture management to help you spot the gaps like orphan credentials or overly broad access before they're exploited. So this fabric lets you shift access to living, adaptive controls. This is how identity stops being a gatekeeper and becomes an enabler. And I want to talk about what this really delivers for a second, not just for security, but for the business. Because it isn't just a technical fix. A unified identity security fabric drives tangible outcomes, the kind that your board, your customers, and your regulators all care about. So let's break this down what this looks like in practice. The first thing is real-time threat visibility. With identity woven into every access, every action, every decision, you get end-to-end visibility across humans, machines, APIs, and AI agents. That means faster detection, faster response, and fewer blind spots as your environment grows more complex. The second thing we have here is enforced least privilege. Least privilege is no longer a once-a-year audit exercise. With a unified fabric, you dynamically enforce just right access across every identity in every moment. And that shrinks the blast radius of any compromise, whether it's human or AI-driven. The third is proven zero trust. With identity as a control plane, you can continuously verify every access, every action, without relying on static rules or assumptions. The result is real zero trust, operationalized and frictionless. And then finally, you have maximized investment value. This identity security fabric doesn't just replace your stack, it amplifies it. It integrates across all of your existing tools, cloud platforms, and AI systems, so you get more value from what you already own. Bottom line here is that in a world of more and more complexity, identity is how you simplify, how you secure, and how you scale your future. And earlier, we talked about embedding security into AI innovation, not as an afterthought, but from the first line of code. And that's especially true with generative AI because, as I've said before and will say again, these systems aren't just answering prompts anymore. They're initiating actions, like calling APIs, and they're representing users. So what does secure by design actually look like in this new paradigm? We have 4 core principles that would align here. The first is user authentication. AI always needs to know who it's acting for. No identity, no action. That means every GenAI task begins with a verified identity, human or machine, before anything can move forward. The second is token vaults. AI needs to call APIs on a user's behalf, but we don't hand it the keys to the kingdom. Token vaults lets you delegate access securely with short-lived tokens and scope permissions rather than exposing long-lived credentials. The third is async or asynchronous authorization. For sensitive actions, especially high-risk or irreversible actions, the AI should pause. It should trigger an async flow for explicit human approval. Think of it as AI asking you, are you sure that you really want me to do this? And then waiting for the green light. And fourth and finally is fine-grained authorization, or FGA. It's not enough to just ask, can it act? We need to define exactly what it can do and how much. AI access needs to align tightly with the user's permissions, by data, by action, and by context. So you've heard all the threats. AI that acts faster than we can react. You've seen the shift. Boundaries are dissolving, decisions are made by machines, not by humans. And you've seen the pattern, which is that identity stands as the crucial and perhaps the only point of control. So what does that unlock? It unlocks three things. The first is resilience, not because systems won't break, but because trust is woven into the very fabric of our operations, which gives us the ability to bend and recover in the face of inevitable disruptions. The second thing it unlocks is speed, right? Not reckless acceleration, but the confidence to move forward because we have precise control and a clear understanding of who and what is acting within our systems. And finally, it unlocks leadership, not just in tech, but in trust, in ethics, and in impact. Because security is not the thing that slows AI down. When it's built on a foundation of trusted identity, security becomes the very enabler. It allows AI to move responsibly, safely, and at scale. And when every action, when every access, when every decision is tied to a governed identity, you can govern complexity without losing control. You can innovate without putting people or data at risk, and you can lead without compromise. So here, trust is not a side effect. It is the strategy, and identity is how you execute it, which is why we say here that the future moves at the speed of identity. And those who build on that foundation will shape what comes next. So with that, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and check out Okta for more information. Thank you.